Hey Saints fans, welcome to Saints TV. It's Thursday night, April 4th, and the teams have come out for round 3. If you didn't already know, which you probably do, we're playing Fremantle away from home, our first away trip of the season, interstate, the longest trip we'll make this season to Perth. And we're playing the Freo Dockers, who are 1-1 and in 6th place on the ladder, so they're just underneath us. We're in 5th, so it's a big game. We're looking to go 3-0 for the first time in probably 10 years or so. I can't remember the last time we've been 3-0, but it's a big game for us. It's our first serious away test, and although Freo lost to the Gold Coast, who we beat in round 1 last week, they were very good at home the previous week against North Melbourne, especially with their tall timber in the forward line, and that's kind of the main talking point for me in this video will be, from what I've seen with the ins, I don't know where we're looking to go because of the big out that we have. So let's just go straight to the chase. Let's go to the teams. This is what's just come out on the AFL website in terms of the ins. In is Hunter Clark, Ben Long, it's an extended bench, Hunter Clark, Ben Long, Brandon White, Ben Patton and Darragh Joyce. Really the only player that jumps out to me there is Joycey because of the tall timber that Fremantle have, and I always thought it was a given that we'd go for some height in the backline because they've got the likes of Hogan, McCarthy, the guy from GWS, Rory Lobb. They've got some serious height there, as well as their ruckman as well, and Brandon Matera's named and in, so their forward line along with Hill is going to be very, very dangerous, and they're a different proposition in Perth, so it's going to be a big game for us, and if we can go there and do something, then it really does set us up for the rest of the season, because we'll come back to Melbourne and we'll play Hawthorn, who we saw last week gave up a 5-goal lead, and then you play Melbourne, who are struggling, so don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but this game can really make or break our season already in round 3, so we really want to be competitive in this. The out, which I didn't say, is Jack Steven. He's listed as managed, so it's got nothing to do with an injury. It's nothing, to do with his mental state. It's literally the club has stated on their website, which I'll read to you here. They said, Jack Steven has been spared the trip to Perth after limited preparation ahead of round 1. The star midfielder's workload is being managed. So basically, because of that time off he had during the pre-season, where he just needed to have some time to himself and just to be with his family, which is perfectly okay, he just needs an extra week, particularly because it's a long trip to Perth. Give him the extra week, he can be fresh, and then we've got 2 games in Melbourne, which no doubt I think he'll play. But it's more just what we do with the ins. They've got such a big forward line, Fremantle. They've got such serious height. On one hand, do you change the way we played last week to try and benefit our team to cater to their strengths, which is their height and their forward line? Or does Richo and the coaching staff go, well, Essendon had a fairly tall, had a decent forward line and we ran off them pretty well. Do we want to use the wide space of Optus Oval, because it is a big ground, and run Fremantle into the ground? We want to get the ball to the ground, and if they've got height, it doesn't matter, because then we can have the smaller blokes in the half-back flanks, in the back pockets, like the Savages, like the Websters, like the Nunes that can run. Mackenzie, that they're endurance beasts. These are the guys that have done the 3-4K time trials in the pre-season and did well. So if you were the coach, you don't have to comment if you want, but if you were the coach, would you change the back line to suit Fremantle's strengths in a ploy to, think that we're better off winning, or do you go with pretty much an unchanged lineup, unchanged back line, and back that back line to do the job on some serious tools in Hogan, McCarthy, Brent, in Rory Lobb? They've got some tools there, and it could be a problem, but you've got Nathan Brown, you've got Josh Battle, but Battle's undersized compared to those blokes. You've also got Joyce. I think Joyce has to come in, but at the same time, Hunter Clark dominated. Well, he didn't dominate. He had 23 possessions for Sandy and had 12 tackles. He performed well. He's done his job. Does he come in for an extra runner because Jack Steven's come out? So a like for like in terms of midfielder to midfielder. You're not going to lose a midfielder and then bring in another tall. It's an interesting one, but I think if we just look at the positives of last week, I think that the team, no matter who is on the park, they've got this sort of verve about them. And who was it that said it? Was it Gary Lyon or potentially Gary Lyon or someone in the AFL media said that our performances recently of the last 2 weeks remind them of North Melbourne of last season. That, you know, North Melbourne at the start of last season, everyone criticised and said it wouldn't do well. They had a relatively decent season, above expectations, and people think it's similar to what we want to do this season because we've copped so much flack in the off-season of we're going to be bottom 2 team, we're not going to win more than 2 games this season, and we're just putting in so much effort that we're going to get results, and it's not to do with, you know, this talent we have or anything. It's to do with just sheer will and sheer aggression towards the opposition, which I don't give a shit. If it means we're just going to win games, I don't care if it's out of talent. But if it's, I think a good team should be built around effort first and then build around talent. So already this season we're bringing in some talented players in Parker and Wilkie. So we just keep topping up on those, but keep the effort. We're just going to get better and better. And, you know, last week's win, even though it was only 11 points for that first hour of the game, we were all over Essendon, and it should have been a shellacking, but we couldn't kick straight. So I think we couldn't really have any better sort of preparation to take on Fremantle. And I called this when we beat Gold Coast. People said, oh, you only beat Gold Coast by a point. They're shit. That means you're shit. You couldn't even beat them at home in round 1. And I thought, well, maybe Gold Coast are better than we think. You know, maybe we're better than we think, and maybe Gold Coast have improved too. And look what happened. Gold Coast, I should have tipped them. I had a feeling they were going to win, and they went and beat Fremantle, and they played well. They've in the 2 games they've had this season, they've been decent. In the off-season, they were good too. So when you look at it, maybe Gold Coast may not be a bad team. And when you look maybe in 10 weeks or in, you know, towards the end of the season when hopefully we're in the finals position or close to it, we might look back in that 1-point win and think, shit, we're lucky we got that win because Gold Coast aren't bad. They're pinching games off other teams, but they didn't pinch that one off us that we may need when it comes to between, you know, 6 to 10 position. It might be critical in terms of where we finish on the ladder. Let's go through some of the match preview stats that the AFL have put up. So this is what this game means to St Kilda. What it means for St Kilda. Nobody expected the Saints to be 2-0, and if they can ambush Fremantle away from home, it would frank their form and go a long way to proving Alan Richardson's men won't just be walkovers in 2019. I already think we've proven that, but this would further establish that because we didn't play that well. I flew to Perth last year and the crowd got onto us. We started slow. We kicked 1 goal 5 to half-time last season, and I was there. We ended up losing by 30 points, but we did draw it back. This is another point. How St Kilda wins. How St Kilda wins this game, and their first point is pressure. If the Saints can lock down Fremantle's ball movement, which is generally a lot slicker at Optus Stadium, they can limit the threat of the Dockers' dangerous tall forward line and protect a depleted back line. I think that's what we forget. We all, and I've been guilty of doing this already, we're so focused on Fremantle's forward line, how potent it is. We're not looking at their back line because it's really not that strong. I mean, if I can get the line up here, refresh it, it's not a strong back line, and I think our forward line's getting there. I think it's one of our strengths. I think it's potentially something that we can exploit in this game if we don't get exploited at the other end of the field. If you go back line, they've got Hamlin, who's decent, Alex Pearce, he's all right, Luke Ryan, Conker, Nathan Wilson, I don't know who he is, and Adam Serra, don't really know who he is. So there's a back line there with a forward line with Tim Membry, Gresham, Parker, Bruce, Kent, Loney, all in good form. Maybe Marshall drifting there. We can exploit that. In terms of their forward line, they have Jesse Hogan, Taberner, I forgot about, Travis Collier, who's again from Richmond. They've got Michael Walters, Cam McCarthy, Andrew Brayshaw, and I think on the bench they've got Sean Darcy, Rory Lobb in the ruck, who will then rest forward. So they've got a huge forward line. But if we can exploit it and minimise the entries, which I thought we did well with Essendon, we didn't let them run through us. No doubt if any team lets Essendon play their game, they flick it around and run through the middle, they're going to create chances. We didn't let them do that. So I think the game plan for Fremantle, although on a bigger field, needs to be very similar. We need to, the second they get the ball in the half-back flank, you need to man up, you need to play that zone that we did against Essendon, where it guards the space. They have nowhere to run. and really nowhere to kick to apart from 50-50 packs. And if we're switched on, you want to break even and better the 50-50s, you do well. Let's go back to what the AFL reckons and see what they reckon here. It's the matchup of the game. The matchup of the game for me, and they've listed it here, is Jack Steele versus, you guessed it, Nat Fyfe. Nat Fyfe has been in pretty decent form in the first 2 games. Jack Steele, on the other hand, is leading the competition for tackles. So what better player to take on one of the form beasts in the AFL? Brownlow medalist, gun midfielder in Nat Fyfe. It's got to be Jack Steele. If Jack Steele can do a job on Nat Fyfe, that really does put the game into our hands. That does help a lot, because a lot of Freos, the barometer of Freo is Nat Fyfe. If he gets a clearance, if he gets 35 to 40 touches and lays 10 tackles and kicks a goal, they are going to win the game. Those are the sort of numbers we need to avoid, because last time we played, he was best on ground. He had 13 clearances with 36 disposals. That was Nat Fyfe last season, and they beat us by 30 points. Jack Steele didn't play on him in that game. This time around, I think it's a definite ploy that we need to focus on, because if they get the clearances, and with the new 6-6-6 rule, they've got the tools, we need to ensure that the clearances are more our way than theirs, because we don't want to expose our, somewhat undermanned defence to the air balls that they're gonna be delivering, because there's just more chances of them taking just contested marks. So we really want to avoid that at all costs. They've tipped, their prediction is the Dockers by 16 points. So, I mean, it's not like they're tipping them with any sort of confidence. And I mean, most of the people in my tipping comp at work have tipped Fremantle. I tipped us. I also don't get, I looked at the Herald Sun, and you know how they do the tipping comps, and they talk about, out of the 30 people, how many tipped one team, how many tipped the other. 29 tipped Fremantle. 1, the kiss of death, I think it was, tipped us. Are you serious? It's not like we're playing West Coast over there coming off a premiership. We're playing Fremantle, who just lost on a long trip from Perth to Queensland. They've got to travel back. That's a longer trip than what we're doing to them. And they lost to Gold Coast, who everyone criticised us for beating, and they couldn't even do it. And 29 tipsters picked them. Not one thought St Kilda could go there with, full of confidence against, beating Essendon and Gold Coast 2-0 with nothing to lose, away from home, no pressure, no crowd, to worry about. Not one tip. Like, how single-minded are these experts, in the AFL world? They all seem to talk as if they've got some sort of individual brilliance in their thinking of the game. But at the end of the day, they literally say exactly what the other person says. They just regurgitate the same shit in different words. I don't mind that they're not giving us that respect, because I'm sure 29-1 tipped Essendon last week, and probably most of them, those idiots would have tipped Gold Coast as well in round 1 and in the pre-season. There's never a time where they're ever going to go easy on us. They're going to tip against us and hope we do shit every week. It's a thing that happens with the smaller clubs. You never see it with Collingwood or Richmond or even Essendon and Melbourne when they're doing terribly. They still get favouritism. We seem to never get it. But I actually like that. Like the Bulldogs. People don't rate them. They don't think we're going to do that well. And we're just out there. And I think that's just going to give us more ammunition. Keep doing this, media. I want our players to keep reading the papers and thinking, geez, they still think we're not good. Let's go and smash Freo on the weekend. And I really hope they do. And I have a feeling that there's just something in this that I just feel like, they're not going to just go there and lose. There's going to be some sort of thing happen. We're going to be in this game. I really think we're going to be in this game. And I don't see why we can't win, And you guys seem to be pretty confident. I don't see, we're not going in with any sort of changes. Losing Jack Steven is going to hurt us, but if we can get Hunter Clark in, let's go there and run them off their legs. We're supposed to be the fittest team in the comp. We've finished the better in round 1 when Gold Coast were there for to take the game from us, and in round 2 we held an Essendon team that got so close that anyone else watching would have thought Essendon are going to run away with this, and they didn't. We kicked 2 goals, got 23 points up thanks to Gresh. And Sinclair in the last, and that's what happened. Anyway, guys, let's go through some of these comments before I close this off. Got to be Joyce in. A lot of people thinking Joyce, which means, does Hunter Clark not make the trip to Perth? would you drop Stephen and bring in Joyce and no midfielder? You know, it's an interesting one because at the same time you want height, but do you want to replace a like for like and keep the legs? What's wrong with Stephen Lee? He's asking. He's being managed. So he had a delayed preseason due to his mental illness, and he took time off, which he didn't train. So they're just making up for that, and they didn't want to risk him over the long journey to Perth. Impossible is nothing. Go you mighty Saints. Exactly, Joe. This could be a surprising season for us, and so far so good. We're 4 wins from 4 games, so let's just keep it running. Just the fact that we know what winning is now is good. We've had a month of winning, so I feel like a lot of people are underestimating how important that is for us. We've had 4 wins already in the matter of a month. All of last season, over 7 months, we won 4.5 games, guys. We've already won 4 games this season. No matter if it's JLT or against Gold Coast, it doesn't matter. Winning's winning, and it just builds a culture. So the more we can do with that, I think, especially if we can get one away from home, traveling games won't seem as daunting. Especially, you go to Perth and you win, you feel like you can go anywhere and win. We don't win without Stephen. I disagree. I think we can win without Jack Stephen. It's not like he's been hugely influential in the 2 games he's played. He's been good, he's been serviceable, but both times he hasn't kicked 3 and had 40 like his best form is. He's had 24 and laid 5 tackles, and I'm sure Hunter Clark can do something like that when he comes in. Jason says, go Saints, we got this. Darren says, has to be Clark in. Kelly says, think Stephen is concussed after last week. Clark in, no-brainer. Grant says, Mackenzie out for Joyce for height matchups and Stephen out for Clark. So, Mackenzie, everyone's criticising Mackenzie. I think that he's, in a game like this, with his running capacity and to cover the ground, I think he's important. Joyce makes us a lot slower, but he caters to the forward line of Fremantle. But they're very mobile, those forwards, so maybe it's better that we go a bit smaller and more mobile and just triple team these tools than going with a Joyce who's probably not as flexible, not as fast, doesn't really have the dexterity. He can't turn and run as quickly as someone like a Josh Battle can, or a Webster. Even though they're kind of slightly undersized, they're still more mobile and they can run off their man and cause damage going the other way. Joyce doesn't really do that for us. Brendan says, yes, it was Gary Lyon who said that about us being similar to North Melbourne. I don't want to be anything like North Melbourne, just let's get that clear. In any way, shape or form. North Melbourne were good last season. We've seen how shit they are this season. I think we have a better list than them, so I want to do better than them. Darren says, I'm sick of hearing the media saying we haven't got much talent on our list. That's fine. Let them do that. Anastasia says, what do you reckon about Nick's comments about Essendon and then going through survival mode? I don't think I heard those comments, to be honest, Anastasia, but I'll have to check them out. Dean says, these players are hit and miss, can be very much hot and cold. So far, they've been pretty hot, so let's keep that running. We're going to need it in Perth as well. I'm not sure if it's going to be hot over there or humid, but I'll have to check that. That might affect us, but I think no matter what, we'll be fine. Eliza says, Clark is a great choice. Leslie just says, Saints. Darren says, great to see White in. It's an extended bench, Darren, so he may not come in. He may still be an emergency. What the fuck, no Stephen, says Brad. Patrick said, think the umps will murder us over there. We always, no matter who we play, whether it's West Coast or Fremantle, the umpiring is always shit in Perth. Always shit. It's shitter with West Coast, but it's, that Alan Richardson's comment of, the sound of affirmation. It's so true. People mock it when they say it on TV, on Fox Footy or whatever, but it's so true. If we tackle someone, you can't hear anyone say, holding, ball. You can't hear the crowd do that because it's away from home. We've got 4,000 people onto 45,000 Freo fans who are going to be yelling ball, and it's going to reverberate around the stadium. It's going to influence his decision to think, well, they're right. They think it's ball. I'm going to pay a ball. And that'll happen more times than not. I just hope it doesn't happen on the weekend, and it doesn't cost us the game. I just want it to be a well-umpired game. But so far, there haven't been many of those this season in any game, particularly our game last week and the Gold Coast game the week before. So we haven't had a good run. No, Stephen, this is a big loss. Michael says the bastards on the Raw. No prick tip the Saints. We will teach them. We will fly under the radar. No Stephen, no Saints. Disagree. Need a midfielder to replace Stephen. Hunter Clark, got to be him. Confidence is up, can't lose. Rucks, Marshall. 100% it's going to be Marshall, and then it looks like it's going to be Josh Bruce. They said Billy Longer is available for playing, but they're probably going to play him for Sandy this week and see how he goes. But I don't think he's the sort of guy that wants to take on a Rory Lobb anyway. I'd back Marshall, and I'd back just Bruce to chop out. I think, you know, Marshall's performance last week shows that he can take on the best ruckman and take on, you know, their sidekicks as well and do a good job. And I think he offers so much around the ground that hopefully we'll see that on the vast sort of space of Optus Stadium. Jeremy says, we would have lost without him in round 1. Absolute fact. All right. Megan says, Hunter needs to play. Sharon says, boys have gelled so well. Bowie says, get Robbie Young in. I know, he's another guy that we haven't mentioned, but he's done well for Sandy, so they're probably just going to give him another week, not throw him into Perth and debut him against Hawthorn, which could be quite exciting. Have to tip Freo now, says Stephen. Chris says Mackenzie is a lock, very underrated, great one-on-one. He's also a great mark. Has anyone noticed that he's not the tallest guy, but his vertical leap is as good as anyone's in our team. Like, for his height, he gets up high and he takes the ball at its peak height, you know, so no one can punch it. And he takes it so cleanly and fast down that no one has time to punch it out of his hands. Michael says, think Joyce is relatively athletic. Ross Lyon would have done all of his homework around Stephen. Now he's not there. Now it's Ross. It's great to see that we can win without a premiership player leading in Dan Hanbury. Where is Caulfield? Still for Sandy, still playing in Sandy, and apparently he's not tearing it up, so he needs to get better there if he wants to play for the firsts. Temperatures are looking to be 27 on Saturday. Not bad. Extended squad. So, that's right. The full squad will be announced tomorrow at 5 p.m, so I'll post that on the page, but for now we'll just talk about what we can kind of guess. It's going to be Joyce and Stephen, I'm tipping. Gresham in the middle, 100%. Stephen says, love your work, but as long as they give their best, that's all we can ask for. And Mackenzie is like Farron Ray. It does remind me like Farron Ray, but I think he could turn out to be a better player. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I'm pretty excited about this game, to be honest, just in a nutshell. It's an away game, and disappointing because I wanted to go, but I just didn't have, you know, the availability over the weekend. I went last year and it was amazing, even though we lost, but I think it'll be a better game and tighter game this time around. I did tip us. And can you imagine, I honestly was thinking just, and I don't want to get caught in that thing where, you know, you start winning and you go weeks and weeks ahead, but if we wake up on Monday morning 3-0 facing Hawthorn and then Melbourne in Melbourne, off the back of 2 solid wins and a big away win to Freo, God, how the vibe on this page, the vibe for the club in general, surely then we get some credit. You know, I just can't imagine what that feeling will be. When was the last time we were close to being 3-0 in a season, you know? Like, we won 4.5 games last season. To be 3-0 if we win already after 3 weeks is unheard of. So, couldn't be prouder of the guys. Like I said on my review video against Essendon, could not be prouder of everything they're doing. They're just going out and they're playing hard footy, and that's exactly what we want. So I'm hoping they do that on Sunday and make us all proud again. I can't wait to watch it. I hate that it's a 5:20 on Sunday. It's the last thing you do on a weekend. I wish it was early on a Sunday. But I'll be doing my review anyway right after that, so stay tuned for that, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Keep the comments coming. Go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel. These go up on there. Fan TV will probably happen even after the game. There'll be videos, don't you worry. On Instagram, Saints TV Official. Follow us there. We've just hit over 2,000 followers, which is awesome again. So thanks so much for everyone for following. And this page is growing, you know, day by day as well. So I'll leave it there, guys. Thanks again for watching. This will also be uploaded on Spotify and iTunes for the podcast, so you can listen to it at any time in your car or stream it at work. So enjoy, and I'll see you after the game on Sunday. See you guys. Go Saints.